The latest Ministry of Defence note for the Prime Minister's office, which will be put up at the Cabinet Committee on Security, says Pakistan continues to support terror groups, which is a significant challenge to our society. There is no change in Pakistan policy vis-a-vis their links with terror organizations in Kashmir. They are continuing to sponsor low-intensity internal conflict. Now, if this is the assessment of the Ministry of Defence being put up to the government at the highest levels, then is the Prime Minister's policy on Pakistan completely out of sync with ground reality? Joining us on center stage this evening, Ambassador Hussain Haqqani, former ambassador to the United States, one of the best known, most renowned and respected voices on Pakistan's foreign policy. With me for a perspective from the Indian side, Ambassador G. Parthasarathy, former High Commissioner to Pakistan. For a military perspective, Major General Ashok Mehta. Welcome, gentlemen. I want to ask Ambassador Haqqani first on this latest assessment by the Ministry of Defence or the Prime Minister's office, indicating that the Pakistani army hasn't in any way changed its policy vis-a-vis India. The question that our viewers would like to know then is, what's the point of the Prime Minister's policy of going to try and talk to Nawaz Sharif and get him on the dialogue table?
First of all, I won't make a comment specifically on the document because it's an internal Indian document between the different branches of the Indian government. All I will say as a Pakistani is that it is not in Pakistan's interest to continue to let jihadi groups survive in Pakistan, and the fact that that is happening is cause for concern for those of us in Pakistan who have a different vision for Pakistan, a vision of peace with India, a vision of acceptance in the international environment, and that is just not happening.
But your vision now, clearly, Ambassador, is in minority. The reality on the ground is
definitely in trouble. Yes, I agree and I accept that. But that said, all I will say is that there is no sense in linking the weaknesses and failings within Pakistan with the dialogue process. Dialogue can take place without illusions, meaning you don't have expectations, but you continue to engage in dialogue for the simple reason that two powers, two countries, both armed with nuclear weapons, simply cannot afford not to talk to each other. The Soviets and the Americans stayed in contact. China and India have continued to do business. So that's a separate subject.
So, but you can't be firing Kalashnikovs on one side and holding out the other arm as a hand of friendship. It doesn't make any sense at all.
I think that international politics does require that happen. You may not call it a hand of friendship, but there are handshakes in history even when there is a lot of trouble. Again, as a Pakistani, I will repeat and share with your audience the concern of those Pakistanis who want to see a progressive Pakistan, who want to see a prosperous Pakistan. We are as concerned about the existence and the thriving of jihadi groups in Pakistan.
But we are dealing with the situation on the ground, and despite the pre-poll electoral promises made by Nawaz Sharif about clamping down on terror outfits, about engaging in a meaningful dialogue with Pakistan, exactly the opposite has happened. His government is funding the Jamaatul Dawa or Lashkar-e-Taiba. Their ties are getting more and more close, and the army continues to have a free hand to do what it pleases.
Ideally, Pakistan should have a civilian democratic government that has all institutions of state, including the army and the intelligence agencies, in full control. The fact that we do not have that ideal situation creates a lot of problems for us as a nation, and therefore all I will say, and it would not be appropriate for me to go beyond that, all I would say is that it would be in Pakistan's interest if Mr. Nawaz Sharif were able to fulfill his promises.
Why is he not able to do so, according to you?
My view, of course, and I've written a book and I have another one coming out that is different on the subject of US-Pakistan relations. My view is that a lot of it goes back to Pakistan's elites' insecurities about Pakistan's origins and its ability to stay together. Instead of being a democratic state, a federal state that allows all regions to thrive, a small elite in Pakistan has wanted to make Pakistan an ideological state. International relations is not a subject of ideology. France and Germany fought wars. The United States and the Soviet Union were adversaries. Yesterday's adversaries are tomorrow's friends. To hold our entire nation to ransom over the notion of an existential threat is actually bad policy. That is my view as a Pakistani. That said, why are civilian governments not able to exercise full control? Well, we have a long way to go in making sure that the only strong institution in the country is no longer the armed forces. There's a long historic background to it. We have had 4 military coups. We've been ruled by the military directly for many years. The military remains very effective and is a much stronger institution than any other institution. Moreover, retired military personnel shape public opinion. If you see Pakistani newspapers, a lot of retired military officers write columns and articles, and they shape public opinion. And the Pakistani public is not always told the truth about many things. We still haven't heard the full details of what happened in the 65 war, what happened in 1971, and what happened in Kargil.
Ambassador Parthasarthi, Ambassador Haqqani argues that despite the hostility from Pakistan, the dialogue must continue. But is this not then a pointless dialogue till the time Nawaz Sharif reigns in his army, till the time the terror camps operating in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir cease to operate, or at least till the time his government stops funding Lashkar-e-Taiba?
Look, as Ambassador Haqqani says, you have to analyze the political situation there. Now, President Zardari had no links with these terror groups. Nawaz Sharif has long-term links with the Lashkar-e-Taiba from the days of his father. His brother funds it. When he was Prime Minister and I was High Commissioner, he sent the Governor of Punjab and his Information Minister Mushahid to go and pay respects to Lashkar, to Hafiz Saeed. Hafiz Saeed is allowed to rant and rave. It's not just that. The Pakistan Muslim League has strong links also with other pro-Taliban, pro-Al-Qaeda organizations, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, Sipahi-e-Saiba. These are all linked to his ruling party. So Nawaz Sharif, if you go even back to 1993, the Mumbai bomb blasts which killed 250 people were done with his approval. So let me be very clear, Nawaz is going to leave this path only when the costs to Pakistan and to him personally and his party become unbearable.
No, but there are no costs at this time. India doesn't have a carrot and stick policy. In fact, we are rewarding Nawaz Sharif for funding Lashkar-e-Taiba.
No, this is what I'm coming to. The fact of the matter is that they are facing a three-front situation today, and they've unnecessarily provoked the third front with their behavior on the line of control. In any case, they've got with the Durand line is heating up. They've got their own battle they will have to fight with the Pakistani Taliban. Though Nawaz Sharif is trying to strike a deal with the Pakistani Taliban also. Now, in this situation, what do you do? One, you obviously the composite dialogue process or the dialogue cannot resume, because that dialogue was premised on the understanding that Pakistan will not allow its territory to be used for terrorism against India. They have no longer kept it. No question of resumption. The sad part is New Delhi doesn't categorically tell them so. Point number two, you have, as Hussain says, a large number of Pakistanis who are willing to deal with you. Now go ahead and engage that section of public opinion.
But to what end?
No,
the people who matter are the ones who are still provoking India.
When the going gets too hot for the Pakistani government, which it will, it is this section which is going to influence them. So engage them. But on these specific issues, I don't think there should be a formal dialogue. Yes, by all means, engage them on a back channel, but make it very terrorism specific. That you have to do. Finally, Rahul, we have to raise the costs. This ceasefire came into account because they plastered their forward positions with artillery till they couldn't, go through the Neelam Valley or the Kishanganga Valley as it is called. Now, it takes you 6 to 8 days to even reveal that an incident has taken place. I am quite certain that though the Keren incident started on the 23rd, there must have been quiet instructions till the meeting is over, don't do it. So
but is it because, Ambassador Haqqani, that Nawaz Sharif has had a bad experience with the army when he tried to rein in the generals, that he's now scared of taking on the men in olive?
I think we must always make a distinction between people's attitudes on the subject of civil-military relations within the country and foreign policy. There are many people. There are people who would agree with me on the need for civilian supremacy at home, but who would still be hawks when it comes to relations with India. So those are the realities of
any country. But I'm asking you about Nawaz Sharif and why he refuses to rein in the army despite his attempts at doing so in the past, which proved costly. Is that why he doesn't want to mess with them?
I don't think that is the question in this particular case. I think here there is a bigger question of what should be the nature of relations with India. I think Mr. Nawaz Sharif is very serious about trade relations. He wants economic relations, but he still does not want to give up on the notion of Kashmir being the unfinished business.
But you can't bleed Indians and want to trade with India. That makes absolutely no sense.
I think it makes sense to you and me that it doesn't make sense, but there are people who can carry contradictory ideas in their heads.
One more point, Rahul. The ability of Nawaz Sharif to cut his nose to spite his face. They're trying to deal with Iran to get gas for their power stations. That is falling through. They know within weeks they can get 500 to 1000 megawatts of energy from India. They're not going through with it because there is this lobby which seems to believe that India will collapse if there are no commercial relations. Fine, let them have it. And the other thing is, let's push this commercial relations up to a point, but not to give the Pakistani state and their hawks this impression that we're just dying for trade and our economy will collapse without trade with Pakistan.
The real constituency that needs to be tackled by the entire international community, the United States, India, our Middle Eastern partners, is the constituency in Pakistan that still believes in the myth of an existential enemy. There is no such thing as an existential enemy. And if Mr. Nawaz Sharif does not give up on the idea of an existential enemy, we will not be able to see the kind of progress that everybody's been
There are
betting
two
on.
things that are playing side by side, General Mehta. On the one side, the Indian Prime Minister continuing his dialogue, which Ambassador Parthasarathi says is pointless, and at least the Prime Ministerial level dialogue should not happen. On the other hand, you've got Pakistan continuing to provoke India. At this point in time, do you think the Prime Minister has got his Pakistan policy all wrong?
Yeah, but before that, when I joined the army, which was in 1957, I was told that Pakistan is your immediate threat. From the document that you have just revealed, Pakistan continues to be your immediate threat after 65 years, and therefore fundamental to this problem is that something is wrong with India. That India is 10 times the size, it has 7 times the economy, it has 8 times the resources, and it is unable to deal with Pakistan. So there is a fundamental problem in the approach that we have followed. And that fundamental problem is the virtue we have made about strategic restraint. That we have not at any stage, even after the 1971 war, we had 93,000 prisoners. Pakistan was a defeated country and we got nothing out of it.
But that's because
we got a Simla agreement. On the basis of that Simla agreement, you had a line of control. That line of control has been made violable, whereas the Simla agreement says quite clearly that no use of the force or the threat of use of force. And how is it that Pakistan Army and the ISI are able at will, at the point of their choosing, and in this instance, no guesses for why they started this, that they are able to violate the line of control.
Ambassador Haqqani, does it then make sense to continue with this meaningless ceasefire? I want to put that question to all three.
I just want to make one other point, and that other point is that, you know, it's no point saying the Pakistan military establishment, problem is how do you alter their behavior? That is the fundamental problem, and the alteration of that behavior is something which is outside the capability of the civil society, the civilian government, because the situation is completely out of
Ambassador
control.
Haqqani, can the behavior of the generals be changed?
I think it's not just the generals. All elements in Pakistan who are supportive of the jihadi idea, their behavior needs to be changed.
How will it be changed? Can it be changed at all?
That's the subject of a much longer conversation. But I think that everybody has been looking at it in a very narrow perspective. Pakistan is becoming more and more troubled because we have groups and people and individuals, and our media has a strong component that actually creates an enabling environment for extremist jihadism. And then look, let us be honest, some of our retired military officers say things that are so outrageous, even to those of us who are from that country, that we wonder whether those beliefs are post-retirement or were they even held while they were in retirement.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think it serves any purpose at all for India to continue with this meaningless ceasefire? Pakistan is violating the ceasefire every single day along the line of control.
I think India is a sovereign country and it needs to take its sovereign decisions. Pakistan is a sovereign country and we need to make our sovereign decisions. Ideally, both sides need to understand the costs and the fact that militancy provokes militarism and militarism provokes militancy, and both are not good for either country.
Ambassador Parthasarathy, should India just call off this ceasefire because it's not being implemented on the ground? Our officers are being forced to show restraint. It doesn't stop the Pakistanis.
The winter snows are going to set in, so this will cool off. What we have to look forward to is June next year, and be prepared for it, and be prepared to plaster them if they start this again. Come melting of the snows. More important, I go back to what I said. Pakistan has gotten itself into a situation of fighting a three-front war. I don't want to go into details, but if we choose as a conscious policy to raise the costs for the army of Pakistan in this three-front war it is engaged in, they can be made to pay a very heavy price and think afresh. But do we have a government which is prepared to do that? I think not.
Do you think India should exercise that option? Pakistan already in battle. We can increase hostilities on the LOC and pin Pakistan.
Not just hostilities on the LOC. Mark my word, I said we can make use of that three-front situation to raise the costs for the Pakistani military.
See, Pakistan has got 150,000 elite troops. They are from their strike formations on the eastern border towards Afghanistan. India's strategic restraint, misplaced strategic restraint, takes no advantage of those words. India continues to tolerate the levels of tolerance, the gap in the tolerance levels, instead of narrowing down, has increased until the Indian military establishment and the political establishment is prepared to impose costs on the elements, the so-called non-state actors who are ostensibly doing on the line of control what the military is actually doing. This question of misbehavior of the Pakistan military establishment will continue. So the message must go out. The question of India's red lines, that matter has
We've
never
forgotten
come up.
Gandhi everywhere, except when it comes to appeasing Pakistan and being highly tolerant
so
with what we allow Pakistan to get away with.
On the question of line of control, you know, this 2000 November ceasefire agreement, I've done some research on this, there is actually no agreement. There is no signed document which says on 26 November that the two sides signed a ceasefire agreement.
It's just a declaration by Musharraf.
No, it was a result of a back channel pressure by the Americans. Pervez Musharraf said, okay, I can't handle this, so he offered the ceasefire, and that held meticulously till 2011-12. That is a remarkable thing. Infiltration came down by 60%.
Why is infiltration gone up all of a sudden?
I have no idea. As you know, I live in the United States, and so right now...
What's your sense? You track the situation very closely.
I think there are groups in Pakistan who would, within and outside the establishment, who would like to keep the pot boiling. And
why weren't they wanting to keep the pot boiling over the last 7-8 years?
Vikram saying the army chief has used these words that they want to keep Kashmir simmering.
No, but why did they pipe down for 7 years in the middle?
10.
I think, again, external and international factors, and I think that similar external and international factors could bring about a much more stable order if they were to come into play.
No, so do you think then the ceasefire should be completely cancelled? And what do you think would be the response for India upping the ante and trying to benefit from the three-front war?
Rahul, I would just say that, look, I mean, I know
in?
you've asked this question like 4 times and each one of us has kind of avoided the answer, but let me just be very frank. Escalation of hostilities is never in the interest of anybody. And so, while I agree with the idea of trying to find a way out, and if there is misbehavior on the side of one party, then find ways to end that misbehavior. But it shouldn't be simplified to let's just end the ceasefire. That's not how it should be looked at.
Kayani will retire soon. Do you think things will change post that, sir?
The entire range of policy options should be examined. Those in Pakistan who realize that it is not in Pakistan's interest to continue to be on a war path with India, they need to be able to voice their opinions. People in India need to be able to make it clear that business can't continue as it has in the past, and the Pakistani establishment's point of view needs to be virtually defeated, that they can actually continue with this low intensity warfare.
Do you think Kayani's retirement will change things on the ground?
I think that individuals come and go in what is needed in Pakistan is much more fundamental re-examination of Pakistan's priorities. I don't think that the Pakistani establishment has yet done that.
More fundamental change within the Pakistani military establishment, not merely the change of number one. There is no question of cancellation of ceasefire agreement. There is no ceasefire agreement. What should be done is, and what is happening now, the only outcome of this New York summit is what? The restoration of peace and tranquility. Now, for a change, the Indian establishment, the National Security Advisor, borrowed a terminology, a prescriptive terminology from what we have on the line of actual control against China. We use the word peace and tranquility. That terminology is now being used. The 2 DGMOs have been tasked to restore peace and tranquility.
Do you think that do you see that having any impact? The discussion in New York, will it lead to a qualitative change of the situation on the ground along the LOC, sir?
From what we are hearing, it hasn't had that effect. So therefore, one should always, the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. Let's just wait as how things evolve. Let us just look at the reality on the ground and the domestic politics of Pakistan as it's emerging. And then, of course, the domestic politics as it emerges in India. A lot depends on how all sides, the United States, which remains a major influence on Pakistani policy, Pakistan and India, all of them realizing or recognizing that this is actually playing with fire.
Well, I just wish that there were more sane elements in Pakistan's decision-making establishments, such as yourself, those on the ground taking the crucial decisions which impact the lives of both Indians and Pakistanis, and not being on the periphery of the decision-making enterprise. Thank you very much, Ambassador Haqqani, Ambassador for the South Indian General Ashok Mehta, for joining us on Center Stage tonight. Thank you. In the midst of all of this peace talk, we've got breaking news coming in that one army soldier of the Rashtriya Rifles has died because of Pakistani shelling this evening in the Mindar sector. I want to go across to headlines. Today's editor for Strategic Affairs, Gaurav Sawant, is joining us live on this broadcast. Gaurav, what more can you tell us about yet another act of unprovoked firing from Pakistan along the line of control?
Rahul, I've just got an SMS from one of the commanding officers at the line of control, and he said Lance Naik Muhammad Feroz Khan was on anti-infiltration duty. He was on the anti-infiltration grid when Pakistan tried to push in some terrorists from across the line of control. There was heavy mortar fire in the Rajouri Mendar sector where this incident took place, and the aim of this was to ensure that all the soldiers who are on the anti-infiltration grid, they keep their heads down so that terrorists can then use that opportunity and sneak in. But this brave Lance Naik of the Rashtriya Rifles, we continued to fire from the direction from where the terrorists were coming in. And in that area, there was heavy shelling, and in that area, one soldier was killed. Lance Naik Feroz Khan was martyred in this. There are some soldiers who've been injured in this, but no heavy retaliatory fire from the Indian side yet so far.
Very quickly, Gaurav, what this essentially means is, quite different from what Nawaz Sharif was telling our Prime Minister, there is no let up in border firing. Pakistan Army continues with its unprovoked actions, really vindicating the story that you put out based on the MOD's internal assessments. All this peace talk in New York is literally out of the window.
Oh, absolutely. As far as the Ministry of Defense and troops on ground are concerned, the peace talk is only for the cameras. It is only happening at the level of the two prime ministers. On ground, the two soldiers, the two armies are engaged in a very hostile engagement, whether it's in the Keren sector in North Kashmir or south of Pir Panjal in Poonch, Rajouri and Mendar. We've seen what happened in Samba where we lost a Lieutenant Colonel. Now the new Pakistan army strategy is to target Indian army soldiers and officers, target Indian security forces, and for this they're specially raising hybrid units of commandos, ex-commandos and specially trained terrorists to launch into these areas. And what we've seen in Mendar today, in Rajouri today, and what we saw in Keren last month was just this new strategy being implemented on ground, Rahul.
Okay, so clearly a massive disconnect between what the Pakistani government is saying and what the Pakistani army along the line of control is doing. Gaurav Sawant for the breaking report tonight. Thank you very much.